finally getting warmer out, which means you could do stuff outside, right? Winter's almost over. A lot of people are probably going to be buying e-bikes now, but picking the right e-bike is not as easy as you might think. There's so many things to know, like torque sensor versus cadence sensor, hub drive, mid-drive, different tires. There's so much to consider. So my goal is to make this video your comprehensive guide. So by the end of this video, you not only understand all the terms and what implications they have, but also you know what kind of bike is going to be best for your needs. So let's just get into step number one, which for me, I would say is to decide what kind of tire you want. There's a lot of different tires on e-bikes. One would be road tires. If you are only riding on the road, they're going to be a more efficient way of getting around. It also usually means you have a much lighter bike. And with these, they're often just ultralight bikes in general, which could be very beneficial if you're trying to carry them up to your apartment. But if you plan on riding on gravel trails, they don't really do that well. And if you're riding off-road in grass or mud, they absolutely do not do well at all. I think most people would do better with trail, kind of all-terrain, kind of mountainish tires like you can see on this bike right here. I'll show some close-up B-roll of that one. But essentially, this is a tire that still gives you like 90 to 100 miles of range on most of this style of e-bike, but it also kind of rides a little bit smoother, a little bit of a wider tire. It's more all-terrain. You can ride it off-road if you want. You can ride it on a trail, but you're not really bound to any one specific thing. So I think those are probably the best for a lot of people out there, but there are also fat tires, kind of a third category here. This is gonna be better if you want to just sit back and cruise and ride long distances on the smoothest ride possible, or if you wanna ride in sand, you're gonna want a really big footprint, so really fat tires would be the way to go there. Or again, anytime you're riding on like an off-road, you don't have to be nimble, it's just like really rocky, this could be a great option there. The downside of fat tires is that they're just gigantic tires, which means they're a lot harder to pedal and they require much larger batteries, and they usually don't have as long of a range or as fast of acceleration. Nonetheless, a lot of people choose them because they are very comfortable. But like I said, keep in mind, it's gonna be tougher to carry this bike around if you ever need to. All right, sorry guys, I gotta wear a hat. It's just too windy out here. But once you choose the tires, the second step is to choose the frame style. You want to decide what is the primary purpose of your e-bike and where are you going to be storing it. If you're doing a lot of trail riding, if you're doing a lot of road riding, if you're doing a lot of speed stuff or workouts, all of those, or even just a little bit of everything, you'll be fine with a very standard style e-bike as you see here, where the battery is stored in this main column. There are also more affordable e-bikes where the battery's external, but they're gonna be a pretty mid-weight bike. A lot of these are like 60-ish pounds. They'll fit on a lot of bike racks. You can lift them. Sometimes a two-person lift might be necessary, but there are other styles of e-bikes out there. There are ultralight e-bikes. If you want something that's about 35 pounds, the 10 Ways e-bike that I've been using for a little while is great for commuting. You get a shorter range, but it's a lot easier to bring on a train, put on the front of a bus, carry up to your apartment, and things like that. If you don't care where you're storing it and you want the smoothest ride, the most throttle-oriented riding experience, then a moped style, such as the Segway Cyber, is gonna be an excellent option there. This is similar to like Super 73. It's a whole class of e-bikes, like the e-moto style. They look really cool. You're not really gonna be pedaling. Most of them don't even have more than one gear on them, but again, they are really fun to ride. And the most interesting category, in my opinion, which fits a lot of people quite well as a jack of all trades, but also not requiring a bike rack, this could fit in the back of, say, an SUV, would be a folding e-bike. In fact, I've had these in the front seat of my truck when I was filming my e-bike comparison video, and I had like, 7 in the truck bed. I put one up in the front seat because folding e-bikes give you that flexibility to fold it into a smaller closet in your house or in the trunk of a car, in an SUV. Folding e-bikes still give you good range and good speed, but they're a little more compact when you don't need to use them. You also want to consider the riding position. So do you want something that's more of a power position, wider handlebars? So this would be more of like a mountain style bike as I have right here, which is the Velotric Summit 2. I made a video on that very recently. Or behind me, I have the Velotric Discover M, which is more of a cruiser casual style bike where you're not going to be bending over getting nearly as much power into your pedaling. Instead, sitting more upright is going to be comfortable for really long rides. It has a very large, very cushy seat. Again, kind of more like a beach cruiser style, which many people, like my wife, for example, would much prefer over the bent over cycling style position. Then we have the drive. Do you want hub drive or mid drive? What is the difference on hub drive and mid drive? Well, if you look at these two bikes right here, this is a fundamental difference. This one, the Summit 2, has a hub drive motor. You can see the motor is in the rear wheel. Hub drive motors are simple, therefore they're a lot cheaper. They're pretty durable because there's just not a lot of moving parts on them, so there's really not much upkeep and they last a pretty long time. But they can give you slower acceleration and they usually give you less torque. Obviously, everyone is going to be slightly different, but they're usually a little bit quieter, and they almost always include a throttle as long as you have the correct class, which I'll talk about that later in the video. I would say these are best for casual riders, those on a budget, those riding on flat ground. If you don't have a specific need for a mid-drive motor, a lot of people would love a hub drive motor. I would say the vast majority of e-bikes you find are going to be hub drive motors. Most people who have ridden an e-bike in the past, if you've rented one, it almost definitely was a hub drive motor. But what's interesting is a mid-drive motor is a very different experience. The mid-drive motor, instead of being in the back wheel, is up in line with the pedals, which means that you're pedaling and the motor's turning on the same axis and they're both using the same chain. So this means that it's a little bit more efficient for longer range because your motor is able to utilize the gears you have on the rear wheel. So you're able to drive and shift, and both the motor and your pedaling take advantage of the different gears on the back. It feels very natural and responsive, but it can be a little bit tougher to maintain and a little bit more expensive because, again, you're gonna have a chain that is, taking on a little bit of extra stress from the motor and your pedaling together. But the lighter wheels on the back mean it's a little bit more natural and easy to handle. It's better for steep riding, heavy cargo hauling, or cyclists who are looking to go a little bit faster and further while still feeling not like your bike is doing all the work. It really feels like you're doing all the work because, like I said, it's coming from the pedals. Now, no matter which bike you want to buy, an important thing to consider is price, which is why I wanted to mention the sponsor of today's video, which is Upway. E-bikes can range in price from a few $100s to many thousands of dollars. Oftentimes, you get what you pay for, meaning the more expensive bikes are simply better. But Upway helps to make those more approachable. Upway is like the Carvana or back market of e-bikes. They're selling refurbished e-bikes at up to 60% off the retail price. All their bikes are certified by professional mechanics, and they go over a 50-point inspection to ensure there's no structural damage to the frame, mechanical components, drive system, battery, and accessories. They replace all worn parts that are not in like-new condition, think tires and brakes, and they lubricate moving parts. So these e-bikes are thoroughly tested before they're shipped. They have premium electric bikes from some of my favorite brands like Aventon, Rad, Specialized, 10 Waves, Velotric, Super 73, and more. But that's not all. Upway is also buying older e-bikes or regular bikes as well. Their process is super easy, super fast, and hassle-free. You just need to fill out the online form on their website, linked down below. Then you get an offer, they send you a box, they arrange for pickup at your doorstep. So after this video, once you know what kind of bike you want, consider checking out the link in the description to see how much you could save by buying from Upway. All right, now we have torque and cadence sensor. This is something that I think is so important, and you're gonna see a huge difference when you're riding these. Typically, more affordable bikes are gonna be cadence sensors. Usually the way it works is gonna be like, the logic in the bike is if you're pedaling, turn on the motor to a certain level, which kind of means as soon as you start turning the pedals, the bike just like takes over. It's not really correlated to how hard you push. A really good cadence sensor would have a difference in how fast you pedal. It's going to correlate to how much the motor pushes. But like I said, most of these are just like if the pedal's turning, just turn on the motor and it kind of takes over. So it's going to be more of like a long distance cruising. Like you really want to like turn your legs, but not really push the bike. Like you don't want to exert much effort. Cadence sensor is going to be just fine. But I would say the far superior experience comes from torque sensors, which basically the logic on that is how hard are you pushing, and then turn on the motor to the level correlated to how much you're pressing on the pedals. So if you're just casually riding, it's not gonna turn on the motor that much. You're gonna get a longer range then, and you're still gonna get a bit of a workout. If you wanna go fast, if you really wanna accelerate quickly, you push harder on the pedals, the motor cranks up, and no matter which one you get, torque sensors or cadence sensors, usually they have like 3 to 5 different assistance levels. So if you're on a torque sensor, assistance level 5, it's still gonna do a lot of the driving for you, but again, it's just correlated and more responsive to how you're actually pedaling. Some bikes, like the Velotric ones I have behind me, have kind of a dual option. So like this Summit 2, you can set it to cadence or torque sensor. It's cool how they kind of have that logic built in there. But again, I would highly recommend, if it's in your budget, try to get a torque sensor. Then we have single versus dual motor drive. This one's a little counterintuitive. I think a lot of people think, oh, I want 4-wheel drive in my car, I want 2-wheel drive in my e-bike. But if you think about it, like a dirt bike, the people going up absolute cliffs, they just have one. They drive in the back. A lot of times there's not a huge advantage to having in the front if you're driving up a steep hill. And I think the same can be said about e-bikes. A lot of times you're just gonna drain your battery a little bit faster. I've tried dual motor e-bikes. Some of them are very impressive, some of them are not. I find that they're most impressive when there's obstacles that your bike might be spinning its wheel on. If you're going over, a curb in the front, having the front wheel drive is pretty beneficial for that. If you are in some mud maybe, and you're just kind of getting through real quickly, again, a dual drive motor could be beneficial for that. I would say the main group that would benefit from a dual motor e-bike would probably be those using their e-bike to go hunting, which is actually very common. This would just be a little more helpful if you're getting over logs or going through some mud and you're not going at high speeds. Like, you could see an advantage here, but if you've tried one, leave a comment below and let me know what you think. For my own testing, I just felt like the bike was bulkier and it just added unnecessary weight and decreased the range. Now, of course, I haven't mentioned one of the most important aspects yet, which is the class of the e-bike. This is something that some people might be a little bit confused by. There's four classes for e-bikes. Class 1 means that your e-bike, and you could always limit this lower in the app or in the settings on these e-bikes, but technically Class 1 means that you can pedal with assistance up to 20 miles per hour. You can pedal faster if you want, but the e-bike's not going to assist you after 20 miles per hour. And some states, that's all you're allowed to do. That doesn't mean you can't buy a higher class e-bike, you just have to limit it in the app down to Class 1. Class 2 then is the same as Class 1. You can pedal up to 20, but there's also a throttle, which typically also goes up to 20 miles per hour. Class 3 allows you to pedal up to 28 miles per hour, and depending on, this is a little bit of a gray area, some bikes also have a throttle here as well, some do not. So Class 3 sometimes means throttle up to 20, pedal up to 28. Sometimes it just means pedal up to 28. And then the fourth mode is unrestricted off-road mode, which is generally not allowed on bike trails or roads in most states. Obviously check your local laws, but if you have your own property, your woods, a little track around your house or something like that, then yeah, definitely it's really fun. Some bikes go, like this one here, I got it up to about 32 miles per hour. On some private property, and yeah, it's really fun to ride. And one really important suggestion I would make, I'll make two important suggestions, but one is for your own safety here. Check the rating of helmets. A lot of people think a regular bicycle helmet is going to be sufficient, but typically a lot of bike helmets are only rated up to about 20 miles per hour. And if you're riding 28 miles per hour on asphalt and you fall, yeah, maybe the helmet's going to be enough, but maybe it's not. So you want to make sure you do the research and maybe spend an extra couple dollars on a better helmet if you're riding a bike at a faster speed. The second thing I'd recommend is, like I said, look into your local laws. You don't want to be riding too fast on a bike trail because obviously somebody could get hurt then, and you could end up getting bikes or e-bikes banned in your local area. This is something that a lot of areas unfortunately have been having problems with, and they start restricting e-bikes, they start not letting them in certain areas. So if you're a good, respectful rider, you shouldn't really have problems. So those are the main categories of e-bikes. A couple other things you want to consider when getting your bike is, can you put other accessories on? A lot of bikes like Velotric, for example, have a huge selection of accessories. For example, some of them you can have like seats on the back of your bike. There's literal cargo bikes. You can bring like 2 kids with you when you're riding, or a bunch of pizzas if you're looking to do that instead. Other e-bikes have racks on the back. You can mount things on them. Most e-bikes have really good headlights on them, far better than the little battery powered ones, because obviously you have a huge battery on this e-bike. But you want to consider, is there an app for your bike? Sometimes this is a benefit. I think that having an app is nice, that you can change all the settings on your bike without going through a little display with like 2 kind of low-level buttons there. But some people don't like needing to use an app. And if by now you have a pretty good idea of what kind of e-bike you want, I actually have my top, I think 7 or 8 e-bikes broken down by category. I'll link that video, I guess right here, it's a nice open space. Check out that video. I talked about my favorite e-bikes. I've tested so many e-bikes, and those are the ones that I think are definitely worth your time.